in an ancient forest, sunlight dripped through the leaves, painting dancing patterns on the forest floor. In the hollow of an oak tree lived a little squirrel named Leah. He was a curious fellow with a heart full of wonder and a nose for adventure. One day, driven by his restless spirit, he decided to leave his home and set off into the vast wilderness beyond his familiar trees. All he had was a dry leaf, which he used as a map, tracing the path back to his home should he need it. Soon, Leaf found himself standing on the bank of a rushing river, its waters too strong for him to swim across. Just when his hope began to dwindle, he noticed a wise old owl perched on a nearby branch. "Little one, what troubles you?" she asked in a voice like rustling leaves. Lee poured out his tale, his voice trembling with both excitement and fear. The owl listened patiently, and when Lee finished, she spoke again. "Little one, to cross this river and reach the other side, you must learn to listen to the whispers of the wind. It will guide your steps and lead you to safety." With these words of wisdom, the owl spread her wings and disappeared into the darkening sky, leaving Lee alone with the sound of the rushing water and the echo of the owl's advice. And among the whispers, he thought he heard a faint, encouraging murmur. Gathering his courage, Lee ventured into the river. The current was strong, but Lee, remembering the owl's words, kept his eyes fixed on the opposite bank and pressed on. Finally, he felt the solid ground beneath his paws once more. Shaking the water from his fur, Lee looked back at the river, now a distant gleam in the twilight. With renewed determination, he continued his journey, following the direction the wind had shown him. After a while, he came across a deer, its coat the color of fallen leaves, gently munching on some berries. Lee, hesitant at first, approached the deer and explained his situation. The deer listened with gentle eyes, then spoke in a voice like rustling leaves. "Little one, to climb the high mountain before you need great strength. I sense a fire within you, but you must find a way to fan those flames." Lee, though confused, thanked the deer for its words and, gathering his courage, started his ascent up the mountain. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Lee looked up at the towering peak ahead and sighed. The deer's words echoed in his mind. You must find a way to fan those flames. Lee didn't know what it meant, but he was determined to find out. Just then, a flock of tiny birds with feathers like polished jet flew past him, their cheerful songs echoing through the mountain air. Lee, lifting his head to follow them, found himself at the edge of a sheer drop. Below him, the ground seemed miles away, and his heart pounded in his chest. Taking a deep breath, Lee began to climb. The birds, sensing his effort, circled back and landed on his shoulders, chirping encouragingly. Lee, with the birds' help, slowly began to make his way up the mountainside. As they climbed, the birds sang, their tiny voices blending together in a melody that filled Lee with strength and hope. Finally, as dawn broke, Lee reached the summit. Gazing down at the world below, he knew the deer had been right. The view from the top was indeed breathtaking. But more importantly, he realized that the real treasure wasn't the view, but the journey and the friends he'd made along the way. With newfound confidence, Lee continued his journey, his heart lighter and his spirits high. The birds, their song finished, took flight and vanished into the morning sky. Lee, with a wave of his tail, watched them go and turned towards the rising sun, eager to see what new adventures awaited him. Days turned into weeks, and Lee, guided by the wind over streams and hills, finally found himself on the edge of a misty forest. Sunlight struggled to penetrate the thick canopy, and an eerie silence hung in the air. This forest, shrouded in mist and rumor, was said to hide ancient secrets and forgotten magic. Though a shiver ran down his spine, Lee's curiosity got the better of him, and he ventured inside. As he moved deeper into the woods, Lee noticed the trees grew darker and more twisted, their branches reaching out like gnarled fingers towards him. The air grew heavy, and the sounds of the forest, usually so comforting, now seemed to whisper secrets best left unheard. Suddenly, a strange voice echoed through the trees, sending a flock of startled birds into the air. Lee froze, his heart pounding like a drum. Then another voice, closer this time, seemed to come from the very roots of the trees themselves. Lee, paralyzed with fear, could only watch as strange shadows danced around him, twisting and turning in eerie shapes. His breath caught in his throat, and he wanted to flee, yet his paws seemed rooted to the spot. In the distance, a clearing emerged from the trees, beckoning to Lee like a forgotten memory. Lee, drawn by an unseen force, began to move toward the clearing, his every sense on high alert. As he approached, the shadows seemed to grow, twisting and contorting into grotesque shapes. Lee's fear intensified, yet he couldn't turn back. What ancient power did this forest hold to command his every move? At the edge of the clearing, Lee paused, his heart hammering against his ribs. The sight before him was both mesmerizing and terrifying. In the center of the clearing stood a majestic oak, its branches heavy with age. Its roots snaked through the ground, and an otherworldly glow emanated from its trunk. The shadows from earlier seemed to congregate around the oak, swirling and dancing in a macabre ballet. Suddenly, from the heart of the swirling shadows emerged a figure that sent a jolt of surprise through Lee. It was a squirrel, yet unlike any Lee had ever seen. Her fur was the color of moonlight, and her eyes glittered like distant stars. Her gaze was intense, and her movements possessed a strange, captivating grace. Around her neck, Lee noticed a delicate silver chain, and from it hung a tiny key that seemed to catch the otherworldly glow of the ancient oak. Lee, captivated by the sight, found himself taking a hesitant step forward. The squirrel, sensing his presence, turned her head, and in that moment, Lee's breath caught in his throat. There was something about the intensity of her gaze, the mystery of her being, that held him spellbound. Lee, shaking off his sudden awe, decided to reveal himself. He stepped out from behind a nearby tree and approached the squirrel, his heart pounding in his chest. The squirrel, ever graceful, didn't seem to be startled by Lee's sudden appearance. She tilted her head, regarding him with an air of quiet intensity. "Who are you?" Lee found himself asking, his voice echoing strangely in the clearing. The squirrel, after a moment of silence, replied in a voice like wind chimes. "You may call me Mira," she said. Lee, relieved by her calm demeanor, introduced himself in return. As Lee and Mira spoke, Lee learned that Mira, like him, was a wanderer. She who roamed these ancient woods, seeking something she couldn't quite name. Lee, sharing his own tale, found solace in knowing he wasn't alone in this strange and eerie place. Suddenly, Mira's gaze, sharp and keen, turned towards the ancient oak. "I believe," she said, her voice hushed with reverence, "that this forest holds the key to my freedom." Lee, intrigued, followed her gaze to the oak. The key she wore around her neck glinted in the dim light, and Lee felt a surge of determination. If this forest held the key to Mira's freedom, he would help her find it. Together, Lee and Mira set off into the heart of the mysterious forest. The clearing with its ancient oak and eerie shadows seemed to fade into a half-remembered dream. As they journeyed, Lee and Mira faced countless challenges, each testing their courage, their wit, and their burgeoning friendship. They braved thorny thickets, forded babbling brooks, and scaled moss-covered rocks. Throughout their journey, the forest seemed to throw every challenge it could muster their way, as if testing their resolve. Finally, after what felt like countless hours, Lee and Mira emerged into a clearing bathed in a soft, ethereal glow. Before them stood a sight that took their breath away. Arching across the entrance to the clearing was a magnificent gate formed from 1,000 blooming flowers. The gate shimmered with an otherworldly light, and through it, Lee could glimpse a forest unlike any he'd ever seen. Taking a deep breath, Lee and Mira stepped through the gate. The air on the other side was sweet with the scent of wild flowers, and sunlight dripped through the leaves, painting dancing patterns on the forest floor. Lee, looking back, saw that the gate had vanished, leaving no trace of their extraordinary entrance. As they ventured deeper into this hidden forest, Lee and Mira marveled at its beauty. The trees were laden with ripe fruit. Sparkling streams meandered through meadows of wild flowers, and butterflies with wings like stained glass danced in the sunlit air. Lee, his heart swelling with joy, realized that this magical forest wasn't just a place of beauty, it was a sanctuary, a hidden haven untouched by the troubles of the outside world. And here, side by side, their adventure complete. Lee and Mira knew they had found what they had been seeking all along, a place to call home, and most importantly, each other. So they stayed in the enchanted forest, writing their own timeless story, their love and friendship blooming as brightly as the flowers that wove their magic gate.